Imagine a brilliant expert, someone who has spent decades mastering their field, standing in front of a room, desperately trying to explain their life's work, and the audience is completely lost. It's a universal frustration known as the curse of knowledge. The difference between an expert and a novice is the ability to think abstractly, but that ability is a trap. It leads smart people to communicate using empty jargon like synergy or community building, terms that carry a lot of meaning for the speaker but leave the listener with nothing to hold on to. Trying to teach an abstract principle without giving someone a concrete foundation is like starting a house by drawing the roof first. It has no support, so it falls apart. Abstraction is the tool that makes experts brilliant, but it is also the mechanism that makes them incomprehensible to everyone else. We often assume human memory works like a neatly organized filing cabinet. We think if we just hand someone a folder of data, they can slip it right into the correct drawer, but our brains don't store information that cleanly. Memory actually functions more like Velcro. Your brain is a field covered in thousands of tiny loops. When you try to remember an abstract concept, like justice, the idea only has one or two hooks. It brushes against the loops, fails to catch, and slips away. But think about a concrete phrase, like an ice-filled bathtub. Instantly, you see the frost, you feel the cold porcelain, and you hear the clink of the cubes. That idea has dozens of sensory hooks. It snags immediately. To make an idea stick, you can't just share data. You have to engineer physical and sensory hooks that snag the brain's existing loops. This need for physical grounding is why we see a performance gap in early math education. Standard American classrooms often lean on rote memorization, while many Asian curriculums use a method called computing in context. If a teacher writes 3 + 2 + 1 on a chalkboard, a novice student sees a series of symbols with no physical meaning. There are no mental hooks to grab. But if that teacher describes kids joining a ball game or someone buying 3 notebooks, the math is suddenly grounded in reality. The symbols are replaced by people and objects. When students can see the math in the real world, they grasp the abstract mechanics faster. They aren't just memorizing, they're building a foundation. Beginners struggle to bridge the gap between symbols and concepts without help. They require an existing physical schema to serve as the structural anchor for any new piece of abstract information. In 1968, a rural Iowa teacher named Jane Elliot faced a challenge, explaining the death of Martin Luther King Jr. to a classroom of white third graders. Elliot knew that textbook definitions of prejudice were too abstract. Her students didn't have the emotional hooks required to understand a societal concept that large. She made the concept physical. She divided the class by eye color, declaring one group superior and forcing the other to wear uncomfortable fabric collars. The effects were visceral. Friends began to sneer at each other. The inferior group felt genuine despair, and their performance on reading tests dropped because they could not stop thinking about the collars. By turning an abstract social concept into a physical experience, Elliot created a memory so vivid that her students could still describe exactly how it felt 20 years later. This principle scales up to the corporate world. In 2002, Hewlett-Packard wanted to sell e-services to Disney, but they were struggling to define what that actually meant. HP's engineers were brilliant, but they couldn't coordinate their work around a vague buzzword like collaboration. So HP skipped the PowerPoint and built a 6,000 square foot simulation of a fake family, the Ferraris, going on vacation. The engineers had to solve problems for this specific family, how they would buy tickets, schedule dinner, and view their roller coaster photos. Vague goals are difficult to act on. The HP exhibit shows that grounding a project in specific human needs is a reliable way to take a massive team of experts and align them toward a single objective. Finally, consider entrepreneur Jerry Kaplan, who is trying to sell the first portable PC to a room of skeptical venture capitalists. Kaplan didn't list technical specs or abstract performance metrics. He knew his audience would tune out the data. He took a maroon leather portfolio, told the investors it was the future of computing, and slammed it onto the table. The sound, the vibration, and the physical presence of that object did what technical specs could not. It bridged the gap between an abstract idea and a tactile reality the investors could understand. We think complex language makes us sound more intelligent, but it often ensures our ideas will be forgotten. Mastery is not about using the most jargon. It's about being able to translate expert knowledge back into a physical, sensory reality. Audit your words. Strip away the abstraction. Give your audience the hooks their brains are looking for.